Chicago never ran on loyalty alone. It ran on fear. And few men embodied that fear like Marshal Caifano. He didn't seek power, he executed it. He didn't crave attention, he created consequences. From the policy wars of the South Side to the neon glow of Las Vegas casinos, his shadow followed bullets, bombs, and silence. When debts went unpaid, when witnesses talked, when lessons needed teaching, Marshal Caifano arrived, and people disappeared. Welcome back to James on the Mob. I'm James Jenkins, your host and narrator, and today we uncover the violent legacy of Marshal Caifano, the outfit's shotgun man. For decades, Caifano was the outfit's iron fist, the specialist trusted to execute its most sensitive directives, whether that involved squeezing millions out of Las Vegas casinos or settling scores with lethal finality. His operational identity, John Marshall, achieved notoriety early, as he was one of the first individuals the state of Nevada ever banned from every licensed casino and placed in Nevada's Black Book, a ban that survived him. The analysis of his career must, therefore, trace his path from the gritty streets of Brooklyn to the violent barrooms of Chicago and the glittering Skim casinos of Las Vegas, examining the specialized role he carved out as an outfit enforcer and strategist. Marcello Giuseppe Caifano's story begins far from the neon glow of the Strip. He was born on July 19, 1911, in Kings County, New York, Brooklyn, the son of Italian immigrant parents Domenico Caifano and Antoinette Laviola. He was one of at least two sons. His older brother, Leonard, would become known as Fat Lenny Caifano, a name whose importance would resonate tragically at a point in Marshall's career. The family, like many Italian immigrants seeking opportunity and contacts in the growing Midwest, migrated west to Chicago sometime during Marcello's youth. By 1929, the year the Great Depression began, Marcello, then just 18, was already actively engaged in crime, building a rap sheet that included burglary, extortion, larceny, and interstate fraud. These were not the romantic, large-scale heists of the movies, but rather the grimy, everyday crimes that allowed him to understand the power of intimidation. It was in Chicago that he transitioned from a street criminal to an organized professional. He connected with the notorious 42 gang, which served as a critical farm system for the Chicago outfit, training future bosses and specialized killers such as Sam Mooney Giancana and Sam Teets Battaglia. Caifano's early background as a youth boxer likely contributed to the physical toughness and comfort with violence that became his professional hallmark. Crucially, Caifano's early loyalty was not pledged to the fading power of Al Capone, but to the architects of the outfit's long-term structure. He was taken under the tutelage of Paul the Waiter Rica, who effectively ran the outfit after Capone's incarceration, and aligned himself with Anthony Joe Batters Accardo, the quiet underboss who became the organization's long-term power broker. Rica, according to later accounts, practically raised Caifano within the organization, employing him specifically for heavy work, a euphemism for jobs requiring extreme muscle, intimidation, and zero witnesses. This early calculated choice of mentorship, aligning with the strategic long-term powers like Rica and Accardo, was fundamental to Caifano's longevity and career stability. Unlike those who sought the transient glamour of the streets or the Capone spotlight, Caifano established himself as a trusted institutional operative, ensuring his position would survive leadership changes for decades. This decision to prioritize strategic backing over flashy notoriety is a primary explanation for his survival into old age, a fate denied to nearly all of his contemporaries who sought to challenge the established Rica-Accardo power structure. His specialization, defined by the consistent mention in FBI files and mob histories of his association with shotguns, bombs, and torture, including blowtorches and ice picks, signaled an institutional mandate for extreme psychological enforcement, a skill set invaluable for internal discipline and recovering mob assets. By the late 1930s and into the 1940s, the outfit had long moved away from the volatile booze wars of the 1920s and focused on stabilizing long-term revenue streams like gambling, labor racketeering, and political influence. Caifano, increasingly known simply as Marshall, was centrally involved in running bookmaking operations in parts of Chicago, like the Uptown neighborhood, coordinating collections and enforcing payment. The earliest and most brutal crime linked circumstantially to Caifano demonstrates his critical role in internal enforcement. On the cold afternoon of February 2, 1943, firefighters responded to a small fire in a courtyard apartment building in Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood. When they forced the door of the third-floor apartment at 512 West Addison Street, they discovered the body of Estelle Carey. The scene was described as a slaughterhouse. Carey's body bore signs of a prolonged and savage beating. She had been tortured with a bread knife, rolling pin, iron, and a blackjack club. Parts of the apartment had been set on fire, likely in an attempt to destroy evidence. The victim, a B-girl and chip hustler at the Colony Club, a gambling club on Rush Street, was closely associated with outfit member Nick Circella. Circella was in prison for an extortion scheme involving Hollywood executives, and police suspected the motive was to extract the location of Circella's hidden illicit millions. The sheer savagery of the attack, systematic battering, and mutilation aimed at inflicting maximum suffering aligned perfectly with the extreme methods Caifano was developing. Outfit informants and modern mob historians consistently named Caifano as the likely enforcer or orchestrator of the job, a task of high sensitivity that demanded a specialist capable of both eliminating a liability and extracting critical information through pain. The Carey case confirms Caifano's function as the outfit's surgical instrument for internal policy and asset recovery. Caifano's operational utility extended beyond internal discipline. He was instrumental in neutralizing external threats, particularly from law enforcement. On September 25, 1950, former Chicago Police Lieutenant William Drury was murdered in a professional hit. Drury, who had been dismissed from the force in 1947 for investigating the mob's takeover of the Racing Wire Service, had subsequently reinvented himself as a journalist and private investigator. Crucially, Drury was acting as a prolific source of inside information for federal authorities, specifically the U.S. Senate's Caifano Committee, which was exposing the national scope of organized crime. As Drury backed his Cadillac into his garage, two assassins opened fire with a shotgun and a .45 caliber pistol, killing him instantly. This murder was not a simple gang dispute, but a calculated act of political terrorism against the outfit's rising federal enemy. Law enforcement immediately and persistently identified Marshall Caifano as the prime suspect and likely hit organizer, though he was never charged. The assassination demonstrated the outfit's audacity and required the deployment of its most trusted, skilled, and fearless killer, a role Caifano had definitely earned. Shortly thereafter, Caifano's professional duties merged violently with a profound personal matter: the policy wars. In the early 1950s, Sam Giancana launched a campaign to seize control of a lucrative African-American numbers racket, or policy wheels, that were operating on the south side of the city. The king of this enterprise was Theodore Teddy Rowe, a charismatic policy boss who commanded community loyalty and refused to surrender his business to the outfit. On June 19, 1951, Giancana's crew attempted to kidnap Rowe. The attempt failed catastrophically when Rowe fought back, drawing his pistol and fatally shooting one of the crew members, Leonard Fat Lenny Caifano, Marshall's older brother and a made man. Rowe was arrested but was acquitted on grounds of self-defense, a judicial outcome that was perceived as a massive humiliation for the outfit. For Marshall Caifano, the acquittal meant a personal debt of blood had to be paid to satisfy the rigid code of the mafia, while the organization simultaneously needed to crush Rowe's defiance to consolidate its power. The confluence of organizational objective and personal vendetta made Rowe's death inevitable. On August 4, 1952, Theodore Rowe was ambushed and killed by a shotgun blast right on the steps of his home at 5239 South Michigan Avenue. Caifano was questioned but never charged, yet FBI intelligence consistently lists him as the prime suspect in planning the classic outfit vengeance hit for Fat Lenny. This sequence of events, spanning 1943 to 1952, Carey, Drury, Rowe, firmly established Marshal Caifano as the outfit's unofficial Attorney General, the one delegated to impose capital punishment for violations ranging from internal leaks and asset theft to challenging the syndicate's political reach and defying its business expansion. The geographic precision of these murders, from an upscale Lakeview apartment to a stoop on the South Side, demonstrated the outfit's absolute fearless control over criminal operations across Chicago, regardless of social or racial boundaries. By the mid-1950s, the Chicago outfit identified a lucrative new frontier, Las Vegas, Nevada. Under Ricardo and Giancana's direction, the outfit needed an absolutely trustworthy operative who could oversee the complex casino skimming operations, control the flow of cash back to Chicago, and maintain order through intimidation. In 1955, Marcello Caifano legally changed his name to John Marshall. This change was not a casual decision, but a strategic act of camouflage for his new high-stakes role in Nevada. Operating as John Marshall, he became the outfit's proconsul in the desert. By the late 1950s, he was living in Las Vegas, often at or near the properties crucial to outfit interests: the Sands, Riviera, Desert Inn, and Stardust. Caifano's job was simple yet crucial: watch the count rooms, keep the skin operating smoothly, and ensure that casino operators, potential rivals, and witnesses remained terrified. At the peak of this operation, law enforcement estimated that the outfit and its partners were pulling millions per day in under-the-table cash nationwide, with Las Vegas serving as a major artery. John Marshall was strategically positioned as the man standing in that artery, responsible for protecting one of the syndicate's most profitable ventures. The reign of the outfit's enforcers in Las Vegas was threatened when the state of Nevada decided to assert regulatory control. The modern regulatory era began with the Nevada Gaming Control Act, which went into effect on July 1, 1959. Its mandate was clear: clean up the industry and force out the mob. In a move that severely crippled Caifano's operational effectiveness, regulators created the list of excluded persons, quickly dubbed the Black Book by the press. John Marshall was among the first of 11 names entered into the Black Book on June 13, 1960, permanently barring him from every licensed gaming establishment in Nevada. This action effectively neutralized his ability to oversee the skim or intimidate management, as he could no longer physically enter the casinos he was tasked with controlling. Caifano responded with typical defiance, repeatedly violating the ban and filing a high-profile $150,000 civil rights lawsuit against state officials, including Nevada's Governor Grant Sawyer. He argued that the ban violated his constitutional rights, including his freedom of movement and public accommodation. Federal courts were entirely unsympathetic. A U.S. District Court dismissed the suit, and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the dismissal on August 11, 1966. Finally, in 1967, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear the case, definitively blessing Nevada's right to exclude mobsters from its casinos. John Marshall remained on the Black Book for the rest of his life. The defeat in the courts marked the irreversible decline of the old-school mob strategy. The master of physical terror was ultimately defeated by a sophisticated regulatory mechanism upheld by the highest courts of the land. His greatest strength, his violent, conspicuous reputation, became an irredeemable liability in the newly regulated gaming environment. By 1965, the continuous regulatory pressure forced the outfit to recall him to Chicago. His reign formally ended by 1971, when the outfit boss, Tony Accardo, replaced the aging Caifano with the younger, more aggressive Anthony "Tony the Ant" Spilotro. Caifano's failure to adapt to the legal environment was merely a prelude to the outfit's eventual total implosion in Vegas, hastened by Spilotro's even more unrestrained and disastrous antics. While Nevada regulators won the legal battle, the trail of blood following Caifano continued. The most notorious episode involving a witness occurred after his first major federal conviction. Caifano's legal downfall began with millionaire oilman and high roller Ray Ryan. After Ryan allegedly cheated in a private card game, Caifano threatened to publicly brand him a cheat unless Ryan paid him $60,000. Ryan refused and went to the FBI, becoming the key witness against Caifano. In February 1964, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California, a jury convicted Marshall Caifano as Johnny Marshall and an associate of conspiracy and interstate travel with intent to commit extortion. Caifano was sentenced to 2 5-year sentences for a consecutive total of 10 years and began serving time on October 12, 1966. The act of revenge was not swift but cold and calculated, waiting 11 years for its opportunity. On the morning of October 18, 1977, Ray Ryan left the Olympia Health Spa near 4920 Bellamede Avenue in Evansville, Indiana. As he got into his Lincoln Continental Mark IV and turned the key, the car exploded, killing him instantly. The murder remains officially unsolved. However, federal investigators immediately suspected Chicago outfit involvement, and historians widely believe Caifano orchestrated the sophisticated car bomb as an act of profound personal vendetta against the man who sent him to prison. Ryan had reportedly offered Caifano $1 million in restitution after his release, which Caifano rejected. The rejection of the money and the 11-year delay underscore the central role of honor in the mafioso code. The revenge was a psychological necessity to erase the humiliation of being incarcerated due to a cooperating witness. The irony of Marshall Caifano's career is that the most spectacular violence he was tied to, including the murders of Estelle Carey, William Drury, Teddy Rowe, and the car bombing of Ray Ryan, resulted in 0 homicide convictions. Instead, federal authorities successfully neutralized him by following the money trail and pursuing fraud charges across state lines, forcing him to be incarcerated for financial crimes. While serving his initial extortion sentence, federal prosecutors in Chicago secured another indictment. On June 27, 1967, Caifano pleaded guilty in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois to 7 counts, including conspiracy, wire fraud, and interstate transportation of stolen property, stemming from a scheme to defraud a lumber dealer out of approximately $42,000. The judge handed him an additional 12 years, set to run consecutively with his existing 10-year sentence. Adding to the list of unsolved outfit hits orbiting Caifano's sphere of influence was the murder of Richard Kane, a uniquely dangerous figure who was both a corrupt Chicago police officer, an outfit courier for Sam Giancana, and an FBI informant. On December 20, 1973, just after noon, Kane was executed by 2 ski mask gunmen using a shotgun at Rose's Sandwich Shop, located at 1117 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. Reports indicate that Caifano had been seen meeting with Kane shortly before the execution, fueling speculation that he had set up the hit on the longtime associate who knew too much and had crossed too many people. Caifano's final major conviction occurred years later. By May 1980, federal authorities in Miami, Florida, secured a conviction against him for receiving and helping move stolen stock certificates worth over $1 million. He was sentenced to 2 concurrent 20-year terms. This conviction for less prestigious racketeering, such as fencing stolen securities, confirmed his fall from a powerful capital regime to an aging freelance criminal, stripped of his territorial authority. And again, the profound irony is that the man who orchestrated shotgun ambushes and torture was caged for paper crimes. The FBI succeeded by treating the outfit not merely as a collection of thugs, but as a criminal corporation, achieving justice through systematic white-collar prosecution that mobsters were ill-equipped to counter. Caifano served around 11 years of these combined sentences, securing his release in the early 1990s. He was released in October of 1991, retiring quietly to the Fort Lauderdale area. After his release, the feared enforcer became an anonymous retiree. By all accounts, Marshall Caifano, still permanently blacklisted by Nevada, faded from the criminal landscape. He died of natural causes in Florida on September 6, 2003, at 92 years of age. His body was returned to Chicago for final arrangements. Visitation was held on September 10, 2003, at the Montclair Lucania Funeral Home at 6901 West Belmont Avenue on the northwest side of Chicago. His final, most public address is found at the outfit's most famous resting place, Mount Carmel Catholic Cemetery in Hillside, Illinois. He was interred in Section 21 alongside legendary figures like Al Capone, Sam Giancana, and Tony Accardo. Caifano, the invisible hand who worked in the shadows and enforced the rules, ultimately ended up in the most public mob graveyard in the Chicagoland area. So goes the story of Marshall Caifano. He remains a testament to the brutal efficacy of the Chicago outfit, a man who outlived his rivals and superiors despite his penchant for extreme violence. He beat the murder raps, lost the fraud cases, and ultimately his name remains on the Nevada Black Book years after his death, a permanent marker of the outfit's relentless effort to control Las Vegas and the state's successful pushback through legal and regulatory means. And in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on the outfit's shotgun man. I'm James Jenkins. If you've enjoyed this video on Marshall Caifano, you know what to do. Hit that like thumb, subscribe to the channel and share, and be on the lookout for another episode of James on the Mob. And remember, life is short, so don't whack it off. See yous.